All right, here we go. So, welcome to all of you to the Author Jam for September 2024 already. As Dave just said, it's already getting into fall, so seems like the year's just clipping by. And so we're convene again and just see what bubbles up, as Teo would say, what's on your mind and that we wanted to chat about. So the floor is open and open invitation. And I think Dr. Katie's on his way too.
I don't know.
I'll jump in.
Remember
In
what
the
I'm
spirit
I'm
of.
about. I have a. Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
I'll jump in the spirit of just getting started because I need to leave at 25 after the hour today. Part of my joining in today is a little follow-up. Ryan, you and I got to have a live stream call and it was fun to do, and it's fun to see what you recorded and snipped into little pieces. So there was a little excitement in me, just like, oh, I kind of want to come back to this space thinking, hey, Ryan might be on here also. So I have that. And if I let myself play a little theme, um, two things, I guess. One is I'm going into an event that I'm hosting tomorrow, and there's about 90 retired pastors, and I get to be part of the piece of the program that says, so what are we really doing anyway? What do we really care about? So I've got a little bit of that story running in me. And then also, it's a theme really that's come up across several different conversations that I think ties into this space also. The part of me that so seeks for the simple, like, why do I do what I do? Why do we do what we do? And a lot of that lately has been on Circle, the process methodology and way of being that is Circle. And I notice I'm using this line of sometimes we need to be unhurried and uninterrupted. And that's where Circle is our friend. So I notice I'm playing those lines. I bring that with a little excitement and a little like tail wag of clarity. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I love it. What I've been learning so far since my life changed forever with my wife's passing last month is how to allow what you just said, Tennyson, those quiet, undone moments, no doing. And at first I thought it was depression, born of sadness, and it was. But then I got really good advice, which was those moments are part of your learning about how to be different now that you're no longer a partner. And as much as I hated the quiet, and this house is deadly quiet. There's not even a creak. I used to like to hear the creak outside this door when my wife was walking back and forth, and there's nothing. So that's my first thought. And real quickly, each week, even during that horrible week, just 3 weeks ago, I I I moved to do one of my wait a minutes, which I post every Friday. And I was out this morning on the golf course, which is part of my way of keeping myself up. And I thought, there's two letters, R-E. That's what I'm going to have as my wait a minute. Wait a minute. Think about those words. Revive, restore, recover, rebound. Those are important things. And we don't do that unless, this is to your point, unless we have a practice that matters not just to ourselves, but to others. And so the podcast and work to support the book and being part of this, that's my practice, and it matters. Otherwise, there's no just two other letters, un. So that's my offering.
I love the spirit in which you share, Dave. And I wasn't aware that your spouse had passed. So thank you for just sharing a bit.
Fast acting
I just
cancer.
found out yesterday.
Oh.
And I was just, my heart hurts for you.
Thank you.
Oh,
I didn't want to bring down the group, but I did
No,
also
no.
want to mention it because that's what I'm learning.
Of course.
You know, it's a huge lesson that if I don't recover and respond and
I
revive,
see.
you know, you won't see me again, and I won't be doing podcasts, and I'll just be slumping off somewhere. And boy, I don't want to do that.
And Dave, that really ties into several things for me because I'm a little bit ahead of you because I lost my mom back in
Yeah,
June, and we're
I
having
know.
the Ruthiversary, her celebration of life, this weekend on Sunday.
Ah,
And also what is present for me is a circle I've been in for a while, and we're in the theme crafting and invitation phase, which we've been in for a while. That grieving and thriving is the circle that
wow.
we're working on, and we're coming into a place where the event design, it was open space. We're designing the event differently now to kind of go through cycles of small group grieving and what losses are we grieving. And the theme is starting to come to the gift of grief. What gift are we receiving from that? And which is a very interesting place to be interesting, right? And I want to put a couple other re's in there before dropping the virtual piece into the center, is that there's also reciprocate.
Oh, I like that.
So
Yeah.
to receive and give and allow that gift to amplify and recover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are great. Well, when the circle gets over to Connecticut, count me in.
Well, everyone here will be invited for sure.
Uh,
I just want to not be in a hurry.
yeah.
Cool.
I want to be here for you, Dave. I want to know how you're doing. I want to know how we can support you and how I can support you and be here for you.
Well, thank you. And what I have among the lessons that I'm learning in the last just 3 weeks or so is the importance of continuity. And Connie and I had 71 of our 81 years together. 71, that's longer than, you know, most baby boomers have lived. And the continuity that was clear when we went to Maine for her burial was there in a circle of friends and relatives who came together at the gravesite. And I looked, and there was like my oldest friends from Maine, my cousins who had known all their lives and so forth, just a few. And there was my son and daughter, and we were at the gravesite. And it was my all 71 years just compressed into a moment. And then the next point of thought, honestly, as I'm standing there and I was sort of moderating the presence at the site, was 81, 91. Can I get another 20 years? And then I looked and I said, no, Connie's in there. And then I thought, well, no, she's not in that urn. She's here. And everyone who
Yeah.
spoke talked about how Connie made them feel.
Hmm.
No matter what generation, how she made them feel, not what necessarily, you know, what they thought of her. They all loved her, but how she made them feel. I'm not going to lose that feeling just because those ashes went in the ground. And so Steve, thank you. And that's what I want to be with everyone, is I want to continue the memorial, and not in a maudlin way. And again, I think, you know, in a way that I'm learning some new lessons, and I'm a teacher. And I'm not going to shove them down people's throats. I'm going to listen to everyone who gives me their thoughts about my loss. And then I'm going to keep myself going. revive, restore, rebound. And this is what I'm doing today. Now, tomorrow I may be a puddle of grief. And that's what happens too. So, but thank you. I've done enough talking, I think. I'd love to hear how everyone else is doing.
Right. And when you're willing, at some point before we go, I'd love to hear a story about her, that a happy memory or story or something. If you'd be
Yeah.
willing to share at some point before we leave today.
Sure, I'm sure one will come.
Okay.
One will come to me. Many
Thank-
come to me, but anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I have something I'd like to share. Dave, I came in a bit late, so I was able to pick up from the conversation that your wife has recently passed. And so
yes,
I'm sad for your loss, because it is different when the presence is not embodied. But it's very apparent that her presence is still with you. And
Yeah.
you might remember, I think it was Maya Angelou who said, and this is apropos of what you said about Connie. Maya Angelou said, people will not remember what you taught them or what you said to them, but how they felt when they were around you.
oh, wow,
They will remember how they felt, how you made them feel, how it was to be around you. So I'm offering that as a bit of a tribute to, obviously, a
Connie.
wonderful person I never had the privilege to meet.
Oh, thank you so much. No, that's wonderful. And the resonance is there. I probably knew what Angelo had said, but but it was coming from people who didn't know necessarily what she said. So that's the authenticity.
Mm.
And all of us in our own way on the screen have been teachers a long while.
Mhm.
And I suspect that when we come across someone, like if Tennyson had one of his persons in one of his events, or any one of us, if they say to us, oh, I don't quite remember what the session was about or what your theory was, I'm sure it was, I just liked the way I felt when I was with you trying to learn it.
Exactly.
And my response would be, well, I like being with you trying to learn it too, because every theory is just, something to mold and to work with, and it doesn't
Yeah.
go anywhere unless we both figure out, how to embrace it or not. So yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm. Could I share that you put me in mind of someone who came to me for coaching about 2 years ago. And this is someone, PhD. She was an analyst and a very high level supervisor for the NSA, and someone I just esteemed incredibly. But I said, of course, and we negotiated the agreement and so forth. And about 6 months in, I asked, why did you choose me? Because there are so many people. I know who you could have chosen. And she said, because you're the only person I know who I feel doesn't judge. So she was saying, I don't feel judged when I'm with you.
Wow.
And I've done a lot of research on the social science of relationships and what it takes for there to be a true friendship. This started with Aristotle, that I know of anyway. And Aristotle and researchers since have said, for a true friendship to exist, there must be a sufficient measure of both equity and trust, in a perception of equity. And as soon as there's any kind of judgment, it means that the person doing the judging is setting themselves up. So that's a loss of equity, you see, and it destroys trust, and it makes the person being judged feel bad about themselves. And so it erodes and sometimes even destroys relationships. So she was paying me an incredible compliment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wow.
I'm glad I could share it with you today, Dave. And
Yeah.
I'm in New York, one state over, and I would love to visit you.
Well, northwestern Connecticut's going to be quite beautiful up here, and with the foliage. It's beautiful all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think think I see Carol hiding behind her screen.
Hi, Carol.
Sometimes her auto pops up before she does. Tennyson, you're going to have to leave soon. Give us some more of that thought. What else are you working out in your wonderful way of envisioning an event, forthcoming event?
Yeah, I can say a couple of things, and I think they just tie into what many of us are referencing here. So, in what you just said, Rihanna, it's a pretty strong orientation for me too. I'm hired often, or when I'm hired, it's to be group process facilitator. And in the way that I approach that, usually I'm trying to say, like, that's great. We're going to try to do all of those things. And let me give you another view into what I think we're trying to do. And usually I lead with something like our relationship matters, our connection matters, our connection with ourselves, with each other, what we can discover in the company of each other together. These are all things that I like to bring. And with this particular group that I'm meeting with this week, I find that I'm always looking for like the tiniest little thing that sort of surprises people, and they'll even indulge a little bit, as in the, well, okay, we're just going to do this thing, and it's so deeply purposeful for me. So with this group, I don't really like the room setup we have. It feels it's too traditional, tables of 8 to 10, and they couldn't seem to arrange smaller tables. But I'm going to have them do this little thing right at the beginning where everybody gets a Post-it note at their big tables. And I want them to write down the name of a person that matters to them in this work that they're doing, and then just leave it at their table. And even like, that's like such a tiny little ninja move, that I think insists the relational, or it's one of the ways to insist some of that relational and bring just a spirit of real people, real hearts into the room. And then we can get on with the good learning that we need to do from that perspective. That feels really exciting. So I imagine that many of us do these kind of things, but that's one that's fresh in my mind for something that's coming up tomorrow. Thanks for asking, Dave.
Now, when they're left there, and then if they circulate, do the people just come back to ask someone what that?
Yeah, the way that I'm doing it is I'll use that as an initial round of conversation.
Okay.
Tell a little story about the person that you wrote.
Yeah.
And then there'll be movement in the tables, kind of cafe style, such that people will arrive at another table where there's another collection of names that matter. And even just the energy of that, I think, contributes something. Later in the day, I'll take all of those and put them up on a wall so that we get a nice little collage of all of those things.
Beautiful. I love that.
That's a great idea. Do it and
it.
report back next month.
All right, great. Cool beans.
Everyone wants to be seen and heard.
And loved, yeah.
We'll get out of here. Can you see me? I think I'm out.
Can see you just
hear me?
fine.
Oh,
Yeah,
I can
see
see
oh,
you.
okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great sky.
I'm sorry I'm walking again. But I'm in a period of rebirth. My wife Jean, of not so many years as you, but died of Alzheimer's of all things 5 years ago. And just this morning I couldn't sleep, and I'm actually kind of excited about what's going on right now. But she back the time before, not there. And God, it's so neat to have those little videos and snippets or so forth. I hope you were able to get some.
Oh yeah.
The other thing my sister said to me, she said, I've got two children, and it's not like I stopped loving one because I had another. It's a different thing. And so this year I got married again, and it's and I was looking for somebody like Jean, of course, and found somebody completely opposite. And it's like, oh, this is fun. Oh, this will work too. So I feel good about that. But that's on the personal side, and the other personal side is that I don't know. Some of you know, maybe Steve, you know, sure, but I have this for a long time. I have this strategy about how to transform global society and national society, and in my mind, we're doomed unless we do this. I mean, it's pretty bad. You can't say that out loud usually, but that's how I feel. But anyway, we gathered a group, just 7 of us from different parts of the world, that supposedly were interested in the Global Wisdom Council process. How do we facilitate the missing global conversation so that we can all start participating as a collectively intelligent, so that we can generate collective intelligence instead of collective stupidity. But anyway, we had this gathering just 2 weeks ago, and I expected this group to take them all and run. But something even better happened, and that was that, I'm sorry, there's a garbage truck coming. I'm trying to mute. Yeah, but anyway, but anyway, 2 of the people there who live in Germany and Austria basically said, we're going to do it. We're going to form an organization and we're going to do it. And that is way better than what I imagined. It's like, oh, I don't have to lead this thing. This is great. So that it's just, I've been kind of letting go of the whole global thing. And, just, I mean, if you randomly select people from the global population, you can't get them to come to the US anyway. The immigration wouldn't let them in. So we're doing that out of Switzerland, I think, or possibly Italy. And the other piece is that all of a sudden now the other part of the problem, which to me is the USA, clearly our Constitution is failing in many ways, just designed by a group for time on. So that's bringing forward, I call it the Wisdom Council process, is about, setting in motion the missed conversation where we're all coming together as a we the people, seeking unity, facing these big problems and coming up with shared perspectives on what's going on, what we want, what we need to do. And so I was kind of, I don't know, I mean, I felt this big relief happen. And then, oh, by the way, when the other day, I went to a thing on deliberative democracy, and they mentioned their tools and everything and how that's the only answer. And I said, no, that can't work. I'm sorry. But then their big example was what's happening in Vorarlberg, the westernmost state of Austria. And that's the wise democracy thing. That's not deliberative democracy. That's what we call wise democracy. So anyway, that was exciting. I mean, I couldn't sit down in a chair after hearing his confusion about that and realizing people are starting to pay attention to some of this stuff. So, and now I just feel such a relief about the global situation, and a couple of these guys are really cool. Are going to take it on and start an organization. And now the issue is, how do we get some kind of national we the people happening, because people want to change the Constitution. Well, I'm sorry, that's just more of the same. It's just changing the rules of the game. The game is what's killing us. So, okay. So I'm really feeling exhilarated from they're kind of hard to explain in just 5 minutes or something, but I wanted to give you a sense of how cool it is to feel like progress is so. Because when my mic died, it seemed to me there's two deaths we're mourning here. One is Jean; she has Alzheimer's, and our collective situation has Alzheimer's. Our whole nation, our world, we're all just kind of doomed. So how do we get out of it? And so I feel
Yeah.
really good about that. Thank you.
Well,
Wow.
we might have missed a few details, Jim, at certain points when you cut out, but I want to say congratulations first
Yeah.
on your marriage, and then also that you have that great relief of handing off. I remember the other author jam where you were very passionate about it. So yeah, caught those
Yeah.
big two items at least. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
The word that was going through my mind, Jim, as I was listening to you was renaissance, related to Renaissance, but the idea of rebirth and newness. Your video has
Well,
frozen for a minute, so I don't know if you can
it's
hear
happening
me.
for me, sure. Yeah.
You can hear.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
renaissance,
If I,
beautiful.
I'll get, I think there's a Wi-Fi nearby. I'm gonna go where there is one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first thing that Jim said that struck me about feeling reborn, and then he talked about a feeling of great relief when two people, two different countries said, "No more talking about it. Let's do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it." And he
Yeah.
felt something went off his shoulders. I mean, I'm sure many of us have had that feeling, being the first to organize, the first to hold people's attention on a particular change or subject, whatever it might be. And then they're kind of passive, and we'll meet again, we'll think about it. And then finally, out of the blue, someone says, "Okay, damn it, I'll do it." And it's a huge relief, but it's also exciting because that means it's going to go ahead on another source of primary momentum. It'll become more of a shared momentum. And we've seen that organizational development growth many times in our careers as authors, as well as consultants and teachers. I particularly like to see that happen when back in, working with undergraduates, which is my preference all those years. There would be that moment after you work with them for maybe half a semester or so, when it's out of one person might almost speak out, if not show their face, says, "Wait a minute, we're studying management because I'll either be a manager or I'll be managed, but I better understand it because it's going to be a big part of my life." And then this course, which was required, to sophomores, became relevant to that person, and it spread. Then I almost felt like a teacher going, now I can have some fun with the rest of the semester because they kind of know why we're teaching this, learning this subject. And it's a similar feeling. Yeah. Those breakout moments. Margaret, have you ever had any of those lately with people you're working with?
Yes, I have breakout moments quite a bit. Thank you for asking. And Dave, I'm so sorry about the passing of your wife. And just know that a big part of her lives in you. And that's what makes life everlasting.
I love that. Yeah.
To me, that really helps to understand that when we talk about everlasting life, it's because that part, whoever she touched, all the people you said she made feel X, Y, and Z, a part of her lives in them. So she lives on forever.
That brings to mind a really important moment at the gravesite. This is only 2 weeks ago up in Portland, Maine, where we both grew up at this, both the same age. So we went through and everyone had their moment. And then my daughter, Laura, who had been caring for Connie day and night, along with the rest of us, but she is a nurse, so she was really focused on her. Laura, I said, well, is there anyone else that has anything to say? And Laura said, well, I have something. I want to read a poem that I wrote about Mom called Be Sure, because that's what Connie always said. Be sure now to look both ways. Be sure that you have $1 sewn in your shirt. I don't know, whatever it was, but it was always that showing of her wanting other people to be safe and sound. That was a big thing with us. Well, anyway, Laura read that poem. And I hadn't cried until that moment, but when it was done, through Laura, I was hearing Connie speaking. Like and she looks like my wife. The same deep blue eyes, and it was such an important moment. So thank you, Margaret, because not only do I feel that she's part of me going on, but I saw her in my two kids, two
Right.
55-year-old, 57-year-old kids. In their own ways, Dave was so kind and thoughtful and such attention to detail, and Laura being a surprise poet. It was really a gift. Back to Ryan's point, that was a gift that, it was a breakthrough. Because it broke us all away from the moment of sadness and feeling of loss. And we all afterwards, we hugged and old friends said goodbye. And some came over to my cousins for luncheon that we prepared. And for the rest of the day and into the night, we felt this amazing mellowness.
Mhm.
And I think that was how we always felt with Connie whenever we were in her presence, just that she's looking after things. You don't have to worry. She's being sure.
I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was that you asked me, Dave.
Oh, those moments when we've been working to kind of tee up and get people in a mind to do something together of importance. And we're still feeding that possible hesitance, because look, if Jim was talking global, are we talking the world? Yeah, but still, it takes that moment where 2 or 3 or more other people finally say, I'll take responsibility, or I'll share responsibility,
Right.
and let's work together. And then they do. They actually do things.
So
we
that
heard
happens for me all the time now. And so it's just it is the other end of the spectrum from what Jim is describing, which I'm excited about, global wisdom. And I'm focusing on the local wisdom, right? I know we need both. I'm focusing on the local wisdom and using Charleston history through my family's history to help people see things more completely so that they will take action to bridge the current racial divide, and using Charleston as the nexus for that change. So it's amazing to me to watch when I talk to people, and I'm retired, so I've taught over 1,200 people this year. That's my goal in Charleston, in South Carolina. And what I do is to help people be able to act, as I'll show them that I'll say, this is my little circle of influence. And now you stepped into it. And right. And so all that I ask all that I ask now that they know something different than they did before is to look within their own circle of influence and see what's one thing that they're willing to do to bridge the racial divide. And I give them examples, because in my book that came out a few months ago, I have a lot of examples. So first, I think the circle of influence helps people understand that they have power to take action, and that it's not an action like I think Rihanna was talking about, not being judgmental. It's action is action, and to take an action that in your heart you believe will move the needle positively for you as a human being, for someone else as a human being, for the community and the country, that's really just about all you can ask. So that happens to me a lot, and I get surprised a lot. So like one action that I just found out about Sunday is there's an African cemetery up in Georgetown County, which is north of Charleston on the coast. And it was a hotbed of slavery. And a woman I hadn't seen in 45 years came to hear me talk up there. And she lives on an old plantation, right? Of course, it's developed with big houses. And so she has gone to her HOA, and they have agreed to clean up the African cemetery and put it in perpetual care.
Oh,
And-
wow.
And to see about, there's a guy in Charleston who can actually go in and help you maybe figure out who the people are, even if it's, often first names. So while that's a seismic shift for a woman by the name of Cookie Lyday, right? So I mean, it can be anything like that, but it was within her circle of influence. And if I'd have gone to the Litchfield Plantation Homeowners Association, said, now you people need to respect that cemetery,
Yeah,
and you need to clean it up.
Mhm, mhm.
They just said, Margaret, get your fanny back to Charleston and leave us alone.
yeah. You city folks, stay out of the country.
Right. And so it's about, I simply said, here's the circle, this is my circle of influence, and you're in it. So what is in yours? And
Oh,
so it
wow.
happens a lot. And so it's not global, Jim. It supports global.
Yep.
In a local way.
It
Mhm.
does, it multiplies.
It's all levels of system operating
Yes.
simultaneously.
Yes.
Margaret, oh, I feel so energized by what you just shared.
It's
What is
wonderful.
the title of your book?
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Painful, PAYNE-FUL.
Oh, yeah, I saw
Painful.
that.
Painful Business, Charleston's Journey to Truth. And Payne was the family name I didn't know here in Charleston, and they were slave traders in the domestic business.
Would you mind putting it in chat? You said it so quickly, I can't.
Doing it. I'm doing
Lisa
it.
can
for
do
you.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
God.
don't
love
have
it.
Teo with us today, who was the quick draw on
Right,
finding
right.
links.
Oh, I just
Margaret.
think that people need to have, they need to feel certain that they are loved and that they're invited. And then they can act. And so while I am certainly not at, I don't know, I know who Steve Cady is. Okay, I know who you people are. I know that y'all are much higher level than I ever attained in the field of organization development. But I do know enough about systems and about how to talk respectfully to people and give them space to create their action to make this happen. I don't pretend to be like you all, because I'm not. I came up there, I don't know how many years ago, 15 years ago, maybe, to the Nexus for Change conference at Bowling Green. And I realized that I was a bumpkin.
Oh, bless your heart.
I was a little Southern bumpkin.
Hey, here's a secret, Margaret. We're all pumpkins.
Well, Margaret,
just-
I graduated from Somerville High School.
Who did?
Me.
Who's me? Steve?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
He's a
No.
pumpkin.
I'm a bumpkin. I'm a bumpkin. I'm with
You are a
you.
bumpkin.
My sister teaches teaches school is there. She teaches in
I know. Don't you remember I met her
yeah. You know,
when she
Robin.
had the tragedy? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
I
I
didn't-
got,
Thank you for meeting with her, and when I come back, I would love to get together with you and have a coffee and hang out a little bit.
That would be an honor.
Yeah,
That'd
that'd
be
be really
great.
nice.
well, I have to jump in. At the time we are, and Margaret, since you're in focus, and I think there's a lot of energy around the invitation that you're crafting. Carol, if she can speak, I think offered a convening to support you in that. If I recall, if our friend Carol could come in here and say something about it, maybe.
I think he's just got her recorder.
Oh, she's
recording.
coming off mute.
Oh, there she
I'm
is.
in safe driving mode and can't
Oh,
talk, but I have absorbed this enormously. And it was my intention to send an email as soon as this was over and say how much which is relevant to me and Margaret, you are without any question a practitioner scholar, as opposed to a scholar practitioner. I know that well from doing
Yeah.
all the polarity work that changed the city of Charleston through the police department. So we're talking about somebody who is humble beyond belief. And I can't talk anymore, but I will be in touch. Thank you for inviting that, Rion, and thank you for helping with the connection to Margaret. We will do this.
Thank you, Carol.
And
yeah.
Margaret, I'd love to connect you also with the historian at the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. So she does, her particular work is in slavery and slave trading, and she looked at it through the European lens, and she's tracked down. It's amazing. She's got, I think, a book or two. So I'd like to remember. So maybe you could share with me a summary of your work as an email, and then what I'll do is I'll share that with her and connect you to, because I think you two would have a lovely conversation.
I think that would be excellent. I've actually been in that house, and as you know, in Charleston, we have a large Jewish, historically Jewish community. So I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, what was interesting was when I take our doctoral students over to Europe, we go to the Anne Frank House and spend time with the executive director and the historian, and we learn about that. And she shared with them all her research she was doing on the slave trade and tracking down all of the businesses and the whole intricate system that was over in Amsterdam that was a part of the slave trade process.
Was that your second?
And she shared all of that, and also good. Really good. At least you might want to mute Carol. She doesn't know she's unmuted still. And then the Black students in the program had a profound experience listening to her tell that story.
Mhm.
They'd only looked at it through the lens of their experience in the United States. They hadn't looked at it through the lens of people who are looking at this across the world, people who care about this, right?
Right.
And it was very impactful for them. I can't remember exactly some of the words
in terms of
they
a global
shared.
system, right, Steve?
Yeah, and I think just they felt seen
Yeah.
and heard. That there was something like, even here in the Anne Frank House, which is focused on the Jewish Holocaust and what happened to them, this person who's a historian here is doing this work. They felt a sense of connection that
Yeah.
was pretty important for the students in the room. And I'm always moved by students, because I'm generations disconnected from the people that did those things, right? I'm part Native American, I'm part English, Scottish, and something else. I'm a blend. And but I just really understanding how that history is there for someone who's generationally so far, is generations away from that experience. the actual experience and listening to how important it is to them and how it really means something to them.
You know, that's really fascinating, Steve, because when we were there many years ago, I obviously didn't know this about my family, and I didn't know that I was Dutch. Small part, but Dutch. And so they were, in fact, some of the major players in the transatlantic slave trade.
Mhm.
I mean, major. You know, we think about the Royal African Company that England started, or, you know, we think about the Irish, but I'm telling you, I guess it would be Rotterdam would be on the ocean, right?
Mhm.
Or would it be through Amsterdam? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yes,
What are the dams?
I would
They're
love
right
to.
there. Yeah, you know, you're in Amsterdam, 15 minutes, we're on the beach,
Mm,
you know, sitting on the
okay.
beach. And when I went there this last time, I went to a restaurant on the beach with our partners at the Free University of Amsterdam. We went to this little restaurant on the beach named Ubuntu, you know, and it was really cool because I love South Africa and the Ubuntu phrase and stuff like that. I found it so fascinating, this interconnectivity of everything.
That gets lost, that does not get.
Yeah.
Or we minimize working at the local level when it's really all the same in terms of circles of influence.
Yeah.
It's working, you know, what you do, Margaret, it certainly has global implications, and would be of interest to someone who's a member of this wise council or wisdom council that Dave is talking about. You know, it's all interconnected. And nothing happens at the global level if it's not happening at the local level. So,
That's right.
and everything in between. That's the systemic view.
Yes.
I have a colleague who says, I don't work at the individual or interpersonal levels. I only work at the systems level. And he's derogating, you know, the individual and interpersonal levels and the intergroup level that's in between and all of that. I've argued with him about
The
that for like
problem
8 or so years. It's so frustrating to me because there's an explicit derogation of those other levels of system.
That's
and
right.
yeah, I'm quite passionate about it. And if I could jump in here for a second about Charleston, and really any of the locations that we come from. But to you, Margaret, about Charleston, I wonder if you're connected at all with the information out of the museum about the lynchings in Montgomery. And it's associated with the Equal Justice Initiative that Brian Stevenson started. And I forget the specific name of the museum.
Legacy.
Thank you. So yeah, if you've been there, you know that there's a replication of all of those monuments to the individual. Yeah, for each state and each county in every state. I've been there a few times and I was shocked to discover that there was a lynching in New York State in Port Jervis, which is down close to Manhattan. And the invitation from that museum is for local groups, not officials, not like a village board in my case, or a city council or anything like that, but for a local group of citizens to get together and create a place for their monument to be installed in Charleston. And maybe it's already happened in Charleston, but like the last time I was at the museum a couple of years ago, I lead tours for white women. There was only one state in the whole country that had taken them up on their invitation to reclaim the monument and have it installed where they are.
Not kidding.
I'm trying to connect with people in Port Jervis right now. One is an anthropology professor and a local. I'm way at the other end of the state, so I'm not, you know, of New York, and I'm not connected physically with them except belonging to the same state. But I think it's such an important move at the local level to do something about shifting the mindset and telling the truth before there can be the reconciliation. Yeah, so I'm wondering if you're involved in that at all. I mean, your group that you're
Well, we
working
know,
with.
you know, Brian Stevenson, and the lynching museum is actually called the Peace and Justice.
Thank you.
And then the historical museum is called the Legacy. And
Legacy.
my family's at broadside ads are in that museum. I actually think that Brian Stevenson has done more than anyone else in America on this, maybe next to Lonnie Bunch.
Mm.
But at any rate, yes. And I'm working diligently to get my book in there without success so far. So if anybody knows anybody at AI that can tell them that they would want to carry that book, then let me know.
They wouldn't take my book either, which is on undoing white supremacy.
Well, there's still that pushback to draw people toward a difficult truth, which you both are doing, and then you get this close, and then the other force kind of pushes it away, and this is really where the whole world is, if not our country.
There's so
And
much there.
Yeah, I remember when we had the organizational behavior teaching conference in Charleston at the College of Charleston about 10 or so years ago, maybe more. My wife and I went, and we really enjoyed being in South Carolina. However,
Oh,
we walked out, you know, the campus is downtown. So we walked a little bit, and there preserved in the middle of all that commerce was the platform on which they sold slaves, with a post up that I can still imagine, where they used to chain someone to be looked at. And and here I was, a Mainer, and I knew in my heart that some of my ancestry ran those boats from Africa to South Carolina. You know, they were seamen or captains, and because I can see some of the prosperous houses on the coast of our little town, Portland. And it just stunned me, and I was so glad that it was left and not covered up. But I suspect, Margaret, that there was some realtor or someone or developer was saying, do we really need that in the middle of our town to remind us of that ugly thing, which may or may not have happened. So
That's not how it is here anymore. It's changed in the last 20 years.
That's wonderful. I didn't feel much of that among the people. I just saw that post, and I projected my guilt on it.
Locally, our publisher has sold 2,400 copies of the book since March 13th.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's a local publisher.
Wow.
That means there are a lot of people in Charleston who will want to think.
See, people can't say Margaret Sadler's some rabble rouser from off or some academic. I'm just somebody they all grew up with.
Right.
That's lovely.
So anyway, well, I look forward. I don't want to take everybody's time. I'll look forward to when y'all want to convene to discuss this, because I feel like the opportunity to have this group support me is like this is an example of my stepping into your circle of influence, and your circle of influence is major.
We hope.
I believe.
One way or another, we're all striving to be noticed in the world mainly through our books, which Steve published, my book on Practice as a Way of Being. And it's just the idea that it's out there. 2,300 people bought that book. That's our humble, not so humble way of extending our influence. We love to get some feedback. We rarely do from listeners or readers, but still, there's this. I'm going back to my first word. It's refreshing and reviving when someone says, "Hey, Rihanna, I loved your book. It gave me a lot to think about." And I go, "Wow, I'll do another one."
Yeah.
And if y'all buy books on Amazon, it's on sale right now for $28 and something.
All right,
I could do that.
we can look at that.
Margaret,
little one.
what was that word you used when you were comparing yourself to the rest of us and saying you were
Pumpkin.
A bumpkin.
Okay,
a
I'm putting
bumpkin.
something in chat.
Say
about
what?
Our bumpkin bona fides.
Bona
Yes.
fides. My bunk, I'm definitely, but that's all right. Bumpkin, yeah.
I'm from across the river in West Terre Haute, Indiana, so I'm a little bit of a bumpkin, but not
You
not so
are?
much. Yes, I am. Indiana,
Bumpkin.
home of Indiana State, Larry Bird, but
Country
Larry
boy.
Bird. So
Who is not a bumpkin on this screen?
Well, my high school mascot, which I just put in the chat, was the hillbilly.
Oh, yeah.
The area of the country I live in is considered the northern reaches of Appalachia.
Well,
There was a big thing. Oh, I'm a bumpkin. I'm a bumpkin. As part of trying to connect with you, Margaret, and reassure you and so forth, that we all see ourselves as a bumpkin in one way or another. So I thought, gosh, we're establishing our bumpkin bona fides.
there you go. There you go.
How appropriate we're wrapping up the session
Yeah.
by connecting and how we relate to to bumpkin.
This is the bumpkin bump. Well,
Yeah,
next,
there you
if we ever see ourselves in person, we give ourselves the fist bump and hi, y'all. and,
Right.
and I'll say from Maine, how you doing? And then we can get connected and then we can do great things. The connection is important. So thanks for hosting us, Lisa.
Thanks
Thanks,
everybody
Lisa.
for being here,
Thank you, Lisa.
and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much. What a nice day today.